You know that feeling, right? You try to have a decent conversation online, maybe even offline, about something important,
Mm.
and it just feels like you're either, I don't know, stuck in a room where everyone's nodding like crazy,
Yeah, the echo chamber effect.
or you've stumbled into this massive online brawl where people are just yelling.
Total flame war. It's exhausting and honestly pretty frustrating for trying to actually communicate.
Exactly. I saw this graphic recently from at Pierce Watkins. It's like a U-shaped curve,
Yeah.
and it maps out these discussions. It really clicked for me.
Oh yeah, I know the one. It lays out this whole sort of landscape of online talk, doesn't it?
It does. So you've got echo chambers way over on the left.
Right.
Then it dips down into this area called the Valley of Open Mindedness in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
and then it shoots back up on the right into flame wars.
And that curve itself, the U shape, that represents social media engagement, right?
Yeah.
High on the ends, low in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. Which is kind of wild when you think about it. So that's what we want to dig into today. What's really going on in each zone?
And why does the engagement look like that?
Yes. And how do we actually get into that middle part, the Valley of Open Mindedness, more often? Because that seems like where the good stuff, the real understanding, should happen.
It absolutely should be. It's often overlooked because it's quieter, Not as much noise as the extremes, but that's where the potential for actual learning is.
Okay, so let's start on the left side then. The echo chambers. What does that really look like, feel like?
Well, you painted a good picture already. It's a space, usually online, but not always, where basically everyone agrees.
Right, you poke something and boom, totally agree. This, that little dopamine hit of validation.
Exactly. The key thing is the lack of, well, friction. There's not much challenging the main view. Different ideas are either just not there or they get shot down fast.
And that feels good at first, right, being agreed with. But what's the downside? What's happening beneath the surface?
Well, the impact on, how we actually understand things can be pretty big. You get confirmation bias just running rampant.
So you're only seeing stuff that confirms what you already think.
Pretty much. And it's not just that you prefer it, it's often all you see in that space. This can then lead to group polarization.
Meaning the group itself gets more extreme.
Yeah, the shared beliefs get amplified because they're never really tested. They just bounce around and get stronger. It's like an amplifier for certainty.
Okay. So it's not just agreement, it's like magnified agreement.
And that can lead to being way too confident in beliefs that might actually be, well, flawed or incomplete.
Yeah, you can definitely picture those online groups where that happens. Nothing new really gets in. Okay, so let's swing to the complete opposite end. The flame wars. That sounds less cozy.
Considerably less cozy, yeah. Flame wars are all about hostility. Personal attacks, outrage, debates where it's all about winning, not understanding, zero sum.
And the engagement driver there must be totally different from the echo chamber's validation thing.
Oh, completely. It's the conflict itself that fuels it. Outrage, anger, those emotions get a ton of traction on social media.
The algorithms love that stuff.
Often, yes. Negative, high emotion content tends to get pushed. So you get this cycle. Conflict breeds more comments, which breeds more visibility, which breeds more conflict. Any real dialogue just gets drowned out.
It's like the goal shifts from discussing the issue to just being outraged and attacking. You react, someone piles on, it just spirals.
Exactly. And the effect on our ability to learn or understand anything is, well, pretty destructive.
How so?
You've got negativity bias. Those nasty comments stick with you more than any potential useful point someone might have tried to make. Then there's effective polarization. You start to genuinely dislike or distrust people on the other side, not just disagree with their ideas.
Right, gets personal.
Very personal. And ultimately, instead of opening minds, it leads to entrenchment. People just dig their heels in deeper. It's like the shouting makes it harder to hear.
Okay, so we have these two extremes, high energy, lots of engagement, but maybe not much actual progress. That brings us down to the bottom of the U, the Valley of Open Mindedness. This sounds like where we'd want to be, ideally.
It really does. The valley is characterized by a genuine mix of viewpoints, but crucially, the people there are willing to actually question their own ideas and engage respectfully with different ones.
Okay, I can see why the engagement, the likes and comments, might be lower there. It's not feeding that instant gratification of agreement or outrage.
Precisely. The drivers are different. It's less about viral moments and more about, well, actual conversation, which unfortunately means it often gets less visibility on algorithms. It's harder to find, harder to sustain sometimes.
But if you can get there or create that space, what are the real benefits? like for actually learning something.
Oh, the benefits are huge. You develop epistemic humility,
Meaning,
recognizing you don't know everything, that you could be wrong. It's fundamental. It also builds perspective taking, the skill of genuinely trying to see things from another angle and honestly facing that discomfort of maybe being wrong. That's often the fastest way to actually getting closer to the truth. Real learning happens there.
so it's the prime spot for intellectual growth, but that curve suggests it's tough to get there and stay there. Why? What are the forces pushing us to the edges?
Give our cows something to talk about. Become a subscriber.
Okay.
Like, are the cows gossiping
Yeah, what are they talking about?
about the subscribers?
Are they like rating our comments?
Yeah.
What are the forces pushing us to the edges?
Several big ones. First, as we mentioned, the algorithms. Social media platforms often prioritize those strong emotional reactions, agreement, or outrage because they're easy to measure and generate clicks, shares, comments.
So the moderate, nuanced stuff just gets buried.
Often, yeah, it doesn't spark the same immediate, intense reaction that the algorithm favors. The platforms are almost like structurally biased against the Valley.
Okay, that's the tech side.
Right.
What about just us, our brains?
No, absolutely. Our own psychology plays a huge role. Confirmation bias naturally pulls us towards echo chambers. It feels good to have our beliefs confirmed.
Right, it's comfortable.
And negativity bias makes conflict and outrage feel more important, more urgent than calm discussion. So that pulls us towards the flame war side. Our wiring isn't always helping us find the middle ground.
So algorithms and our own biases are working against the Valley. What about the social angle? Fitting in.
Definitely. Echo chambers offer that sense of belonging, social validation, reinforcing your identity within a group. Lakes feel good.
And flame wars. Is there a social element there too?
Sometimes, yeah. It can be a weird kind of tribalism, that feeling of being part of a collective venting session, the adrenaline of the fight. It can be weirdly compelling for some, even if it's destructive overall.
Okay, so it's a tough place to reach, this Valley. But let's talk more about the payoff. If we do manage to operate there, what are the real strengths?
Well, deeper understanding is the big one. When you genuinely engage with counter-arguments, you either find ways to strengthen your own view because it holds up.
Or you realize it doesn't?
Exactly. And you modify it, or maybe even change your mind. That's progress. It also leads to much more creative problem solving.
How so?
Because you're getting diverse inputs. Different perspectives often spark connections and ideas you'd never reach if everyone thought the same way. Innovation thrives on that kind of friction.
Makes sense.
And really importantly, it builds trust. Even if you still disagree at the end, engaging respectfully shows you value the other person's perspective. That fosters respect, which is crucial.
Those are massive benefits.
So given it's valuable but hard to sustain, what are the specific hurdles? We touched on low visibility.
Right, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Because it's less engaging in the typical social media sense, it's harder to get eyeballs on these conversations.
Yeah.
It also often takes more effort.
Effort how?
Effortful moderation sometimes. You might need clear ground rules, someone facilitating, keeping things civil, making sure everyone gets heard. It doesn't just happen automatically.
We need to actively manage the space.
And there's the psychological comfort factor too, right? It's just not always comfortable having your core beliefs challenged. It requires tolerating some uncertainty, which isn't easy for a lot of us. Okay, so it's challenging. But are there concrete things we can do, strategies to actually build or encourage more of this Valley space?
Yes, definitely. One way is using structured dialogue formats. Things like focusing on underlying interest rather than just stated positions, or using formats like a fishbowl discussion.
A fishbowl.
Yeah, where a small group discusses while others observe, then you rotate people in. It changes the dynamic, slows things down, can encourage more thoughtful contributions.
Interesting. So changing the structure of the conversation itself, what about having someone guide it?
A good facilitator can be key. Someone neutral who enforces rules like no personal attacks, maybe encouraging steel manning.
Steel manning. Right, where you try to state the other person's argument as strongly as possible.
Exactly. It shows you're genuinely trying to understand, not just score points. That changes the whole feel of the conversation.
What about the platforms? Could they realistically do anything?
Well, it's a big ask, but ideally, yes. They could tweak algorithms to, say, prioritize thoughtful Q&A or discussions showing viewpoint diversity, or maybe even reward content that tries to bridge gaps and just driving wedges.
A shift from pure engagement metrics to, like, quality of engagement.
Something like that. It's aspirational, maybe, but important to think about.
And what about things groups or communities can do themselves?
Establishing clear epistemic norms is powerful. Basically, setting expectations about how you discuss things.
Like ground rules for thinking together.
Yeah, explicitly saying things like, it's okay to be wrong here, or let's focus on understanding each other's why. That creates psychological safety. You could even maybe find ways to reward reflection, like a little badge for asking great questions or showing you listened.
Huh. Incentivizing open-mindedness. Those are practical ideas. It makes me think this whole Valley concept seems to connect directly to street epistemology, which we've talked about before.
Absolutely, it's a perfect fit. Street epistemology is, in many ways, a methodology designed for operating in that valley.
How so?
Well, its whole goal is exploring the reasons behind beliefs, fostering understanding, not winning.
Yeah.
It naturally resists the echo chamber because it seeks out different views.
Right.
And it actively steers clear of flame war territory by using respectful questions, not attacks.
So the core principles of SE, they line up with the Valley.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
Think about it. Epistemic humility, starting by acknowledging you might not have the full picture. Steel manning, understanding the other view properly. And the question for stance, why do you believe that? How sure are you? It's all about exploration, not assertion.
It sounds like the ideal tool set for Valley conversations. But could it go wrong? Could SE drift out of the Valley?
It's possible, yeah. If it becomes too focused on just finding common ground and never gently challenges assumptions, it could edge towards being a bit too comfortable, maybe echo chamber-ish.
Okay.
And conversely, if the questions start feeling like cross-examination or if the focus shifts to catching someone out, it could definitely provoke defensiveness and start to feel more like a conflict, more like a flame war, even if subtly.
So how do you keep it firmly planted in the Valley?
It really comes down to sticking to those core principles.
Yeah.
Genuine curiosity, active listening, respect, keeping the focus on understanding the process of how someone arrived at their belief, not just attacking the belief itself. If there's a facilitator, their job is to keep things on track, focused on that mutual exploration.
So the goal is always understanding, not winning.
Yeah.
Okay, zooming out a bit then. What does this U-shaped model mean for, say, bigger groups, organizations, or even how we think about online platforms generally?
Well, for organizations, recognizing this dynamic means they can deliberately try to build processes that encourage that Valley-style thinking. It might lead to better decisions, more innovation, if they can resist the pull towards easy agreement or destructive internal fights.
It requires conscious design, though.
Absolutely. And for platforms, again, if they started valuing thoughtful engagement differently, maybe prioritizing depth over just clicks and shares, it could genuinely help counteract some of the polarization we see.
And for all of us listening to this, what's the main takeaway?
I think the first step is just awareness, recognizing when you are in an echo chamber or when you feel yourself getting sucked into a flame war.
Just noticing the dynamics.
Exactly. And once you notice, you have a choice. You can consciously try to shift your own approach, maybe ask more questions, try to understand the other side, even if the platform or the crowd isn't rewarding you for it immediately. You can aim for the Valley yourself.
So the bottom line seems to be, the extremes are loud, they get attention, they might even feel good momentarily, but the real value for learning, understanding, collaboration, that's down in the Valley of open-mindedness.
Right. But getting there and staying there, it takes work. It means resisting that pull towards easy agreement and resisting the lure of the fight.
It's about choosing curiosity over certainty and understanding over winning.
Well put. Designing our conversations online and off with that in mind is probably key.
Okay, that gives us a lot to chew on. So here's something for you, the listener, to think about. Cast your mind back to a recent discussion you had. Could be online, could be face-to-face, something where people disagreed. Where on that U-shaped curve do you think it mostly landed? Was it an echo chamber, a flame war, or somewhere in that valley? And thinking about what we've discussed today, what's maybe one small thing you could have done or might do next time to nudge that conversation, or at least your part in it, a bit more towards that productive, open-minded valley? Just something to reflect on.